what? I think I've started every podcast for the last like 2 or 3 podcasts out with like, welcome to the future, because I feel, Bryce, I feel like I'm living in the future. I don't know what it is. Like right now, right this second, I feel like the entire world is different than it was 2 weeks ago. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, gosh. And I wonder what it could be. I wonder why that sense of feeling is no. I don't. Do you actually feel like these are revolutionary new devices?
Oh, the PlayStation and the Xbox. I have a lot of thoughts, and I will. I think we should discuss those thoughts right here on the Rage Select podcast. Here on Rage Select, I'm Jeff.
Hi, I'm Bryce.
And Bryce, you got a PS5.
I did get a PS5.
I got a PS5. I managed to snag an Xbox from Walmart. And the difference between the two is, after a week, is astounding. Not to say that like one is better, but for my money, I think I said this before, and I'll probably say it a million times because I like to repeat myself. The Xbox feels like a way faster version of, like, I had the Xbox One, I had the Xbox Series X, One X, and then the Series X, and they basically just feels like faster, fastest. Whereas the PS5, this thing looks like it came out of a 90s sci-fi movie. It's got a vibrating controller. It's got a weird new UI interface that I don't like, that you got to do all kinds of weird shit with. Cards.
Yeah.
Just
the cars. There are a lot of weird quirks with this PlayStation 5 interface that I don't. I think it's fine. You know, I think there are a lot of and I do think there are very real criticisms of the interface, but it's a lot of stuff that I like personally am never gonna get into. Like, I don't really care about there being duplicate trophies between the PS4 version and the PS5 version. I don't really care about I don't have any cross-gen games. I'm just getting the game, and but there are a lot of people like really, you know, you've seen all this with the Call of Duty, you know, people downloading the PS4 version instead of the PS5 version, and like that shouldn't happen. It should be easier to do that.
I think I did that. I can't remember. I did that with one game where I installed it. I think it was a Spider-Man. Is I just said, buy Spider-Man Remastered, install everything. And then I started going to my storage, and I was like, why are there 2 Spider-Mans here? And one was PS4 and one was PS5. And I was like, well, yeah, get that old gen out of here, man.
For some of those cross-gen games, my understanding is that in some of those cases, you have to download both versions to do like the file save transfers. For some games, which is maybe not great either. But
this is where I'm exceedingly lucky, because remember where I deleted all my PS4 save games, so like I don't have to worry about it. I'm starting from scratch all day, every day anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Probably the way to go. Yeah, but they feel it's weird. It just feels weird. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an adult and I just don't have the same childlike giddiness, or maybe it's because I bought like 4 different games at once and now I can't dedicate myself to any of them. But it's neat. It's cool. I have it. I love it. I like looking at the PlayStation 5. I did not get an Xbox, but the Xbox seems pretty cool as well with the Game Pass and all of the backwards compatibility stuff that they've done.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been playing. It's funny because when I picked my like next gen games to play it, so we decided to play Spider-Man Miles Morales as a sequential for Rage Select with Michael and I. So it's like I'm holding off on playing that, just zipping through that. I've played Demon's Souls so many times, and that's not stopping me from playing Demon's Souls again. I'm still doing that. But my first thing I wanted to play was Yakuza, and like it looks better, it loads faster. But man, the Yakuza games, those all looked really good, and they all loaded pretty fast last generation. So I feel like I'm not getting the full impact, and like I'm saving all of the games because I just bought everything for both consoles, and I'm saving all of them to play on Rage Select. So like I played 30 minutes of Bug Snacks, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I mean, that game could be on a PlayStation 2, for God's sake. Like, there's nothing about Bug Snacks that needed a $500 console to play. But like, I have not yet played Call of Duty, the Pathless. I haven't played the Astro Bot. I got Sackboy. I haven't played that yet. So for my money, it's like a lot of what I'm getting right now is just like Demon Souls, and the UI is my PS5 experience.
Speaking of games, like I finished Astro's Playroom a few days ago. That was fun. That's a very fun little experience. It's really cute seeing all of the different little references to games that they throw in there and all the PlayStation iconography. I think that game is just about the right length for a nice tech demo.
What is it? I mean, it's like 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that, or 45 minutes?
I'd probably say 2 to 4 hours. Yeah, depending on it, because it's kind of a collectathon. So if you really want to go in and find all the artifacts, the old PlayStation accessory stuff, and there's a speed run mode, so you can go and run through it again on speed run. But it's a fine thing. It really does. I mean, it's over exaggerated, obviously, the way they implement it, but like all the controller stuff that they do is like really cool, you know, with the mixture of like sound. Like sound is so important to our senses. So the sound on the controller speaker, plus all of the haptic stuff, plus, you know, the controllers that are the triggers that get a little tighter as for different uses.
The adaptive triggers.
Adaptive, right?
That's what I call it.
That's all really cool, and that game is designed to be like, hey, we're really just looking at these things right now. But it's cool, and I think the nice thing about it is it makes you more aware of it in other games. Like talking about Bugsnax, like there's a little camera in Bugsnax, and there's just a little thing that they do with the triggers where it's like that you push down halfway, and then you can feel there's resistance as if you're like if it was a mechanical keyboard where you're like pushing through the like you're activating it, you're chunking it, and then on the way back there, I don't know what they do, but there's like just a very little bit of resistance on the way back, so when you're unactivating the trigger, it feels like you're actually putting it through, you're sliding something, like you feel like you're actually in a mechanical, I don't know, like you're using an old-timey camera.
Interesting.
Like it's very hard to describe. It's very hard to describe in words, but it's little touches like that. And I think playing Astro helps you recognize that a little more.
I mean, I definitely, of the few times that I've kind of messed around with the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback, it's like, I do think that the PlayStation controller delivers on what I feel like was the promise of the Switch's HD rumble, that it just kind of felt like sharper rumble. Like they had the whole thing with, oh, it's like you've got ice cubes in a glass. You could hear them clinking around. But like I've never really played a game on the Switch that seemed to use that to any degree, whereas a lot of the stuff that I'm playing on the PlayStation 5 really does seem to be, at the very least, just kind of messing around with it. Like in Demon Souls, I'm playing as a character where you can like enchant a weapon, right? It's like a buff, and whenever you turn that buff on, the controller just vibrates a little bit, like a very soft haptic vibration, and it actually has a pretty good. It actually has like a gameplay function, because there's when that is on, there's something on the screen that shows it. There's a little icon in the corner that shows it, but there's nothing like right out in front that's like, hey, you're buffed. But I can tell when the controller stops vibrating, oh, like I need to do this again. So it's been really interesting. It's weird because I think that when they were selling the whole haptic DualSense thing, I think they might have oversold it a little bit. And so when I first started messing with it, I was like, I can't feel each individual raindrop on my hand. And then as I kind of calmed down, it was like, oh no, this is better than previous Rumble. Like it feels better than it used to. It's not exactly going to set the world on fire, but stuff like that and the triggers and the UI, and I mean, when you get a game that can do the load times the way the load times work on the PS5, like all that does scream, hey man, it's the freaking future. Check all this shit out, especially playing in 4K. Like some of these games that play in 4K, Spider-Man just looks amazing in 4K with the ray trace lighting and the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback and all that stuff. That just is a really good, like, front and center, hey, look at this. This is impressive. So, I mean, I honestly don't think it... it's like I'm going to say this like it's controversial. It's never been controversial. There's no reason to get one of these right now unless you're like super into Demon Souls.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only one, right? I mean, I guess Astro's Sackboy, Astro's Playroom. There's a couple of them.
Well, and Sackboy is cross-gen.
Okay.
So not even that. And I guess Astro, but that's a pack-in tech demo. Yeah, there's nothing right now other than Demon Souls that is really like you can only really get this on new hardware, which I think is obviously tough. Obviously COVID affected development for every game the past 12 months. And so that makes the proposition on these very weird. But I think just the bits that we do have do show off a lot of potential. Even like Sackboy, I think that's probably the game I've been playing the most out of these new generation of games is the Sackboy's Big Adventure, just because you just hop right in and it's almost lazy. It feels how unlaborious it is to log in or boot up the game and get to a level. Like it's so easy that like I don't know, I'll just have it on and I'll play it and then I'll just turn it off or I'll put it down and do something else. And like it feels really organic in a weird way, but I also think that this just means I'm on and off and on and off a little more comfortably,
I was noticing in Demon Souls that the load times, this is so weirdly philosophical, but like the load times were messing me up because without a 90-second to 2-minute load time, I didn't have time to like reconsider what I just did and why I was wrong to do that. And so I was just like, oh, I died on that guy. Okay, well, here we go. Okay, I'm right back there. And I got killed a second time. Like I got to the last boss in the second world is this thing called Dragon God. It's kind of a little puzzle boss. And I just kept running in and dying because I literally didn't have the cooldown time that I would have from a loading screen to go, wait, what should I do differently this time? It was just like, nope, here we go, back in. But I think that stuff is going to be really, I honestly think that more than anything else, these solid state drives are going to enhance console gaming. Just like you said, the amount of time between like, oh, it's time to play, Bug Snacks, and you go to the menu and you hit Bug Snacks, and it's just like, whoop, there's the title screen, there's the game, boom, you're in it, And then when you apply that to stuff like fast travel and the time it takes to respawn when you die and things like that, it's just like there's so much dead time in games that we're going to get back, and that I'm very excited about. So,
have you gone back and done much previous generation checking out like older games on the new hardware?
I played, actually I have. I played that game that came out. See, the problem is I don't have a frame of reference because I played the video that'll come out today is Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, which is this like marvelous like Bandai or whatever side-scrolling meets Farmville 3D thing that came out like right in the middle of all this launch, so nobody has heard of it. But I played the PS4 version on the PS5. It looked really good, but I couldn't tell how much of that was like it's got a strong art design, it's got a strong aesthetic to it. I didn't see any loading screens, but I don't know, because the previous generation was so good at hiding them, I don't know if there were some and I just didn't see them or whether they were just erased essentially by being on the PS5. But and then I played
like Ghost of Tsushima was like that. Like I booted that up, and Ghost of Tsushima already loads very quickly when you're fast traveling or going to the menu or any of that stuff. And I have a tough time noticing full frame 60 frames per second. And so I'm sure like Ghost of Tsushima like gets a boost, and they made a PS4 Pro version of that, obviously, so that gives it some headway to have better performance. But the most interesting backwards compatibility game that I've played has been Everybody's Golf.
Okay.
So that game has a 60 frames per second mode, but not everything in that game is 60 frames per second. So the camera will move around in 60 frames, and the landscape and the ball, the physics with the golf ball physics will be in 60 frames per second, but none of the character animations are in 60 frames. The character animations are all locked in 30 frames per second. So is the user interface. So you'll get this, especially in that hub world where you like set up a match and stuff. The UI interface will you can see it stutter across, and you'll see your character run around, and it will look like Into the Spider-Verse basically, because it's such an obvious disparity. But that's the only time I've been able to really be oh, I am seeing 60 frames per second. I'm getting something new, and it's at the cost of part of it being noticeably worse.
You only notice it when it's a huge problem that is kind of breaking the game a little bit. No, I have some folks that I know. I'm very envious of anybody that can't tell the difference, because I could tell the difference between 60 and 30 just in a heartbeat. And there were games like Yakuza started out at 60, and it literally has a better looking mode that's 30. And I'm so used to it having that super smooth motion that when I turn it to 30, I'm well, if I turned it like this, it would probably just look weird to me for a while. Also, this is a turn-based RPG, so it's not like I need to have reflexes. But I've just kind of left it at 60. 4K 60 looks really good. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, Spider-Man doesn't get ray tracing. I'm more than willing to take the frame rate hit for the ray tracing, because that does look significantly better. You could really tell the difference in Spider-Man when you turn ray tracing, when you flip it to 60 and then flip it back to 30, especially at night. All the lights in the city and Miles's Venom powers look they cast all that light, and it looks really good when you flip it between performance and quality. So, but
I do like that most games have given options in terms of whether you want to focus on resolution or focus on frame rate, and I wish it was a little more granular. I don't play or stream or capture in 4K. I have a 1080 TV. My card is 1080, and so I don't need the 4K, but it would be cool to make sure I'm getting 60, or if I get a new TV in the future, to be able to say, hey, I actually am fine with 1080, but it would be cool to see this in 120 frames per second, because that seems like that would be a step up where it would be very obvious to most people, I would assume, about the smoothness.
I've never seen it. I've never been in front of a device that has that high of a refresh rate. So I literally don't have any idea what it looks like. Yeah. I mean, I would assume there's going to be a difference, but to this day, I'm just I have no idea. But let us move on, because we have a crap ton of news this week. There's one more big game outside of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. This is coming out this year, and that is Cyberpunk 2077, and we got a couple of videos. I feel like they're kind of... This new Night City Wire that we got this week was... I don't know, a third of it was just how cool is Keanu Reeves? And it was very cool. And it's let's talk about how cool Keanu Reeves is for... I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or something like that. Let's interview him. And he's yeah, I talked about stuff. I did stuff. But I don't know. Did you get a chance to watch this? Did you get any big takeaways from this?
I kind of checked the, and it sounds like I maybe made the right call by not watching this live or watching this full thing, but it seems cool. It is interesting that they are putting out more footage. I think part of this is they had some of this is on Xbox Series X. Some of this footage that they used. I think it looks really interesting. I think finally that we're so close to the launch of this game where I get a understanding of what the game is, what the inciting plot and story stuff are.
Yep.
Where I had felt that was a little more nebulous in the past. So this game looks really cool. I still don't have a full grasp on what this thing is. Is this going to be like Deus Ex? Is it going to be like Skyrim? cautiously optimistic about what this game is because it looks really cool. Like, it's very flashy. The setting is very cool and kind of unique for the level of world building that they're doing here. But what is it?
I can actually,
I don't know.
I can actually tell you, because one of the things in the Night City Wire, the part 5 one. So brief rundown, because nobody needs to know all this stuff. Actually, I tell you what, as a brief warning, like, if you want to go in sight unseen, when they talk about Keanu and Johnny Silverhand, they do really go into some explicit detail about what role Johnny Silverhand plays in the story, which I think could be really cool to see on your own without knowing it ahead of time. I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker or anything, but they talked about that. They talked about the soundtrack, where they said they wanted to get out of the 80s and they wanted to use more like 90s rave synthy kind of stuff. That was mostly just some music nerd stuff. But one of the things that they talked about at the very end was that previously game journalists had been given like 2 or 3 hours to mess with Cyberpunk 2077, but then they had been given a second build after that where they could play up to like 14 or 15 hours into the game. And like, one of the things they said at the end was that this broadcast was essentially the end of their NDA. So once the broadcast was over, they could post their essentially 15-hour impressions, as opposed to just the like very brief early directed hands-on stuff. I read one of those. It kind of made me think that like I wanted to be really careful, because that person was pretty good about not giving out plot details, but 15 hours, you can't keep everything a secret for 15 hours. You're going to get details in 15 hours that you might want to discover on your own. But the takeaway, to answer your question, is that it is an open world immersive sim. So think Deus Ex, Human Revolution, or Mankind Divided, but like in a world the size of The Witcher. So like, instead of being this very tight space where you've got all of these little bespoke things, like, just take that and then multiply it by 15 to 20. So you have an entire open world, but then every mission in the open world is going to be in like a building where you can hack the turret, or you can climb up the side, or you can punch down a wall, and you can go stealth, or you can go full on, balls in shooting, or you can, use a combination of thereof. And that's basically what it is. Like, the person who wrote that article, it might have been PC Gamer, like, very specifically was like, this is not like The Witcher. This is like a giant Deus Ex and mixed with a first-person shooter.
Because I think that's the thing that makes me hopeful and kind of excited to see the game, is that having a bit of a hard time understanding the scale and the scope of this, right? Like, I know what a Deus Ex game is. I know what those games look like. But then you also, if you say, but also the size, the scope of a Witcher 3, a big open world map area like that. I don't know many games that are working on that scale, doing that type of thing. Maybe Star Citizen might be wanting to try to do that, but yeah, so it's cool. That feels new. It feels. I don't know. I don't have words for it.
It feels what I get out of thinking about it is it feels like something that should have happened in the previous generation, because when you think about the way that open worlds in the previous generation became much prettier, and in a lot of cases larger, but not more detailed on a granular level. Like, the difference between a level in Hitman and Grand Theft Auto, I'd rather have a level of Hitman with the density of every individual building has a purpose. Here's a bathroom. Here's a closet. You don't ever have to go in there, but it's there, and it has something that could be useful. Because Grand Theft Auto 5, is very impressive, but you're mostly just speeding down the road past building fronts, and then there'll be a few missions where you'll go inside of a certain place. But the idea of thinking, what if you had a game that was, I don't know, like a third the size of Grand Theft Auto 5, but you could go into every one of those buildings like it was Hitman, which I think that's not exactly what's going to be happening here. There's probably still going to be fakey fronts, but I think you're going to see a lot more going inside detailed environments than just these like a big box with a picture of a door painted on the front of it that you can't do anything with. That's at least the impression that I get. I don't know. We'll find out on December 10th.
That December 10 day is still not even the like next gen version of that game.
Yes, that is actually, I thought that the second video that they put out was really mean because they put it out a few days before the Night City Wire 5, which was this basically Xbox One X, Xbox Series X comparison video that flips between the Xbox One X, which, don't get me wrong, looks real nice. Like, the Xbox One X does not look bad. The Xbox Series, the problem here with this, usually when you do these kind of comparisons, you'll flip between the same footage on both, so you can really get a direct comparison. And I think they avoided doing that because they didn't want to, like, show you that, like, oh, you're getting kind of the lower resolution version, because yes, the only way to really play this game in full resolution, as near as I could tell, is on the PC. The Xbox on December 10th, the Xbox One and PS4 version will come out. Those versions can be played on the next gen consoles and will benefit from faster load times, but they're not going to have, as near as I can tell, any of the ray traced lighting, any of the like effects that you're going to see on the next gen consoles.
And I'll say, like, looking at this footage very briefly, like, the lighting effects are a big deal.
Yeah,
like there's they're doing a lot of the neon, sort of the slick, asphalt. It's that dark kind of look, and when you look at how I think it's just because I'm able to see even as they've pasted out here, like how more generalized the lighting looks on the One X footage versus the Series X footage, where you can see the reflections much more sharper. Even little things like it looks like some sort of light diffusion. The light coming off the neon is just a little tighter. Like it's really different. I mean, it's striking. It's very striking.
Yeah. And then when you really get it side to side, like I especially think that there was a point where you see Johnny Silverhand on the One X, and then there's a point later on where you see him on the Series X, and because they've done this kind of facial capture with Keanu, and he's got a lot of the texture of his face, when you have that ray trace lighting coming in, it really kind of bounces around in that geometry and makes it look more realistic. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks really good, but the patch, the free upgrade to get these versions, this is supposed to be out until early next year at the earliest. I've actually vectored off into a weirder dimension, Bryce, because I am now trying to figure out whether the Google Stadia version of Cyberpunk 2077 will have ray traced lighting, because I have gone as far as to buy the Google Stadia controller, the Founders Edition. I'm a Stadia Pro subscription. This fancy new internet that I've got means that the Stadia actually works really well, especially with the controller. You get a very direct thing. Like, I could see myself playing this entire game on Stadia if it had Stadia, ray traced lighting.
I mean, Stadia is just Linux, right? So you would think. I don't know anything about. I'm not a game developer, but you would think that would be the closest thing to getting a high-end PC version, or all of the ray tracing effects and the high resolution stuff.
Well, as near as I can tell from looking online, it all depends on the video cards that are running in the Blade servers that they're rendering it on. Like, the video cards have to have ray tracing support. It has to be hardware support. There's no way to get around that. And so the question is, I've now been spending time in the Stadia subreddit, so don't judge me. But like, apparently there's this kind of, it's like a worst kept secret that Google is at some point going to be rolling out what they call Stadia 2.0 servers that are upgraded Stadia servers. And the question is just whether that's going to happen by the time Cyberpunk comes out or not. And then it was like, well, if not Stadia, and of course you can't buy a single video card because they sell out in 12 seconds now. What about Google, or what about Nvidia? Not Shield.
Oh, GeForce Now.
GeForce Now. And so I installed GeForce Now. Whole other set of problems. Like a whole other set of problems where you can customize it. And I mean, that was the one where you can use your Steam games, but then it's like running Steam on this Blade server.
Not all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like those are supposed to be using the new GeForce card. So you would think that like between DLSS and the ray tracing that's available on those cards that you would be able to have a better experience. I got to do more testing, but I might end up playing this on one of these streaming services because when your internet's fast enough, the latency is low enough. If I can get it to look like it does in the Series X footage, instead of having to kind of play, because I don't think I'm going to play this 200-hour RPG twice. I really don't, or at least not for like 5 years. Like I'm going to wait to play it again for a while. So if I can get it on one of those, I'd be willing to. In any case, we'll find out in what, like 2 weeks? Is that it? 1, 2, 3 weeks.
3 weeks or so?
3 weeks from now, yeah. So, yes, the future. It's coming, and now there's a whole new set of disappointments to have. Speaking of disappointments, the Xbox Series X and Series S, it's still very difficult to get them. And there was these weird, like, this GlitchCon. There was this other thing that a lot of this Xbox news is going to come from, where Phil Spencer basically apologized for there not being enough consoles. The quote is, "We need more consoles. The number one request I get over and over is, it's so hard to get consoles right now, and I really apologize for that. We've been building them for almost 2 months and trying to get as many into stores as we can, but the demand is just so high." Which is interesting. I don't know. I only put this in here, one, as a nice segue, and two, because I can't think of a time when I've seen a company have such a human response to something like this. Like, I don't think, did Nintendo apologize when the Switch was hard to get, or like when the NES Classic sold out on day one and they were being scalped, or
no, I don't. I can't imagine that they would have. No.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like I think that like the apology like makes it all better or anything, but I think it's just nice that they were like, we're trying. I mean, it's also worth remembering that this is like the weirdest console launch. Like it is so frantic what is happening right now, as opposed to, I mean, maybe the Switch was a little bit like this, but like the PS4 and the Xbox One, this was not like this. It was not this like sells out in 2 seconds. And
this is not the way anybody wanted this launch to go, right? I'm sure if you are Sony or Microsoft, you would have wanted people to be able to line up and make big events and do a big show of, oh, here's the first person in the world in Australia to buy one. Here's, all these people, and having to, even though we've been in COVID world for what,
ever
9 months or so, that is a very small amount of time to completely turn the ship on global retailing, right? Putting boxes into stores is one thing, but then also saying, oh, actually, we need to focus more on online, on delivery, on scheduled pickups for curbside or for in-store stuff. And that's not an easy task. So I mean, it's good on Microsoft for recognizing that it's to recognize like, hey, it's tough. We're trying to seed them to everybody we can. I follow Wario64 on Twitter, and it seems like every couple of hours he's like, Costco might have PlayStations right now. You can try Costco. Oh, maybe Newegg has this bundle over here. It really is a free-for-all in a way that, like, I think we're just gonna keep rubbing up against this system until there's saturation. I don't think that there's any point where it's going to be easier or nicer to get a console than it is right now, because it's not supposed to be like this.
Yeah. I just wish there was some, I mean, I can't think of any feasible way to do it, but I just wish there was some way to stop the people that are buying, 30 consoles and then turning around and selling them for twice the price. Like, I just wish there was some way to stop the scalping, because it'd be one thing if they were all legitimately sold out by people that were just super happy. But there was that picture on Twitter or whatever last week that went viral with the guy that had a living room full of PlayStation 5s and was just like, fucking, I'm selling these on eBay. Don't cry at me, like, dry your tears or whatever. And it was like, God, what a piece of shit. I wish there was some way to take all those PlayStations away from that guy.
Yeah, I mean, scalping is a very difficult problem. So, I mean, you look at the world of concert tickets, and if you remember concerts, there's not a whole lot that you can do on such a mass scale like this to deal with scalping. He said, not really having much of a retail background, but it's tough out there. Hopefully, it seems like they're really in full production and they're seeding different stores pretty much every day. So hopefully people are able to get them without too much delay.
Oh, man. So our next story is that in an interview, they said that those Xbox supply shortages are probably going to continue into April of next year because they're trying to kind of ramp them back up to get out. So, yeah, I don't know. This is also, I just don't know. I've seen this happen enough times with stuff like the Switch, where it's like you're going to have to fight for the first 6 to 8 months that this is a thing. And then after that, you're going to be able to walk into a store and buy one any day, anytime you want. So yeah. I don't know. Part of me wonders whether it's worth getting upset about. But I say that as a person who was lucky enough to be able to get both of these. So I should probably shut my mouth and
well, and all of those delays even work all the way back up to manufacturing, right? Like, in this story, right, as Spencer said, we've been building consoles for 2 months.
Yep.
2 months, like, that is not a lot of time to make these consoles, and then they're making two totally different boxes altogether, and so everything is getting a late start, and so it is not the worst thing in the world that things that software side these things are slow, because it's going to be a while for people to get their hands on the hardware.
Yeah.
So.
In other Microsoft news, we got I feel like all of the companies are dancing around the fact that we're going to raise the price of video games in this coming generation. 2K and like Activision, they've got the balls to just be like, give us more money. But we one of these similar in one of these talks that was happening, this Jefferies Interactive Entertainment Conference, I have no idea what that is. Microsoft CFO Tim Stewart basically kind of intimated that they're looking at whether they want to start raising the price of first-party stuff to $70. I don't know. It's weird. I feel so. Bryce, I don't know if your opinions on this have changed now that you've seen at least the beginning of what the quote-unquote next gen is, whether you feel that what you've seen is worth a $10 price hike per game moving forward. Because, like, I don't know, Demon Souls is just Demon Souls. It just looks way better. It's not like they added DLC to that game. It's not like, as somebody who's memorized that game front to back, that it's any different than it used to be. All of the same ways to cheese dick enemies still work in that game. And like, I've seen a lot of people who are Call of Duty's getting trashed in the multiplayer on Metacritic right now because they say that the maps are too small and the game doesn't feel right. And so I guess it brings up an interesting question of $10 is not a huge price hike until you kind of factor it across everything that you might buy. It also brings up a question of whether, okay, if $60 games are going to become $70 games, or $20 games going to become $30 games, and $30 games going to become $40 games. So like, are indie games all going to be $30, and AAA games are going to be $70, and is the season pass going to go up by $5? So the collector's edition is $120 instead of like $105. I don't know. I'm really curious to know, what do you think about this just in general?
In a vacuum, I think $70 is fine. Now, this is, we are both Americans. We're talking 70 USD. Just as a brief side jag, like, all of the stuff where the price conversion is fucking ridiculous in other countries, like, is actually ridiculous. And that's something that those regions I don't see where those regions need to be paying $80 to $90 US equivalent for these games. That is still fucked up. But as far as American prices go, I think $70 is fine in a vacuum. But we're seeing right now, like you mentioned, it's Activision and 2K leading the charge. And then, like, a lot of the Sony first party stuff, Sony went out and said, like, yeah, $70 is going to be where a lot of our games are going to be falling. I think that can be fine if the price is justified. We're seeing more sales, more digital sales, price reductions on digital content, which can be good. Prices are coming down quicker. But a lot of that gets supplemented by battle passes, and that becomes a case by case basis, right? Call of Duty is a cross-gen game right now, and those games end up being a little bit kneecapped until they make a generational break. Demon's Souls, like you said, is a very nice looking remake, but it's still a pretty faithful remake. I'm okay with it. Especially if that also means that we're going to see a divergence of prices. Some games that would have been $60 or $70, some games that would have been $60 or maybe $50 or $40. I don't know that you're going to see a lot of that, but it would be nice to see, like, I believe, I guess I would have to go back and look, but I believe, like, Sackboy was $50 instead of $60, which feels about right for that game. It's all case by case, though. The sports games, I don't think you look at Madden or FIFA and say these games this year should be $70. I don't know that you can look at those games and say these should be $70.
On Amazon right now, Sackboy is $60. I don't know if it was, maybe the digital version was slightly cheaper, but
maybe it was or like, it's on a case by case basis, right? But I think I think with sports games and the annual shooting games, leading the charge on that, I think is just, it's not going to win any consumers over, right? It's not a good first impression for people, I would say.
Yeah. I think I would be perfectly happy to pay $80 for Cyberpunk 2077, right? But Call of Duty,
if it's truly what they say that game is going to, or what I mean.
If it is what it says,
is really what it is. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's just, I really start to get into I guess the thing is that I've always said that I don't have any problem conceptually paying more for a game if the game is better, if it looks better, if there was more hours put into it. The problem comes in that that's not the equation that the video game industry is operating by at the moment. It's that they want to charge consumers as much as they possibly can for as little as they can do. Or not everybody does, but a lot of times you get in these situations. Take WWE 2K20 from last year. They charged $60 for that broken, messed up piece of shit that they didn't even bother to fix or support. Like that game is garbage. Like, it's literally broken. It does not work. And the thing is that companies right now, they know that there are problems in games before they launch. Like, I have a story in here about that remake of that 13 game, that old PlayStation game that they put out, and they were just like, we thought we could get a day one patch in under the wire, and then we couldn't. It's like they literally pressed a broken version of the game, shipped that with the intention of fixing it like having enough time between pressing the master and the game being on shelves to be able to put together a day one patch to release it. And it's like, well, in an industry that operates like that, I don't know that I could justify giving you extra money for every game, because you know, if the argument was as pure as fucking Strauss-Zelnick likes to pretend it is, where it's just like, well, we're giving you zillions of hours of top quality content for like almost no money, we should get to give an extra $10 and also have microtransactions. Like, well, if that's,
then they should fucking stop shipping broken, right? Like it like, I mean, we didn't talk about this when we were talking about the console stuff, but like there are a lot of reports of people having trouble with these new consoles, especially the PlayStations, and it's like, this shouldn't fucking happen. Like, I know that the software and the UI and stuff, that's all gonna get ironed out, and all of that stuff had to get rushed out, but damn, y'all, like, these are $500 things. They should maybe, like, they should maybe work a little more stable than this. And so that's where, you know, me saying in a vacuum this makes sense, but right, like, I don't think that this is going to mean that these games are going to get more QA time. I don't think that suddenly there will be less crunch in the world. You know, it's not like this is going to be a more morally or ethically pleasing decision. So in that context, it's like, well,
it gets into a really granular...
Who is that $10 going to?
Right. It gets into a really granular area where, like, I was watching a video on YouTube of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and they said that, you know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was like a 35 to 40 hour game, and then Assassin's Creed Valhalla is more like 60, and at the middle of it is just this huge unending drag of doing the exact same thing over and over again. Go to an area, meet the color NPC that's there, hear his backstory, take over 2 forts, do the final battle, move your little chess piece, and the knife goes in the map, and then boom, repeat for like 35 hours, and then go to the end of the game. And it's like, okay, if you're like, oh, well, we need extra money because look at how long this game is, and it's like, well, there's a difference. Didn't need to be this long. Right? Yeah, you could have cut out 2/3 of this game and it wouldn't have suffered at all for having that gone. So yeah, I do feel that it's interesting. There are very few examples in my mind of video game consumers managing to push back in a real way, like a sales dropped off the side of a cliff type of way. I mean, like, you know, Mass Effect 3, right? But we all bought Mass Effect 3. Like, nobody got their money back for Mass Effect 3. Like,
right.
They turned off the refund process for Warcraft 3 Reforged. They stopped refunding No Man's Sky after a little while. Like, they do not want to give you your money back. And outside of that, I just don't know what you do to try to hold a company accountable by saying, hey, I paid your upfront cost that you told me you needed, and what I got was a fucking slot machine and 30 hours of busy work. Like, that wasn't worth the extra $15. Mm-hmm. So,
and beyond all of that, like, I do think that if you raise prices, I am going to expect a certain amount of, say, feature parity with these new titles, right? I would like to see, you know, on the Xbox, I want to make sure that, like, these new games work with quick resume, which, like, is also a very buggy part of the Xbox experience right now. Quick resume doesn't work with everything or in all cases. Mm-hmm. You know, I would want to make sure that these games have, it would be cool to see if these games have, like, on the PlayStation, the activity cards, using the activity cards or making the tip videos or any number of these new system features, you know, using the controller triggers and the haptics and stuff. Like, I would hope that price increase actually manages to fill in some of these new expectations,
right?
And I don't see that happening because I think we're still struggling to meet the bill of goods as sold today. So I wish it wasn't 2K. Like, if it wasn't 2K and Activision doing this right now, maybe it would be easy, but I just it's hard to trust it and feel like that this makes sense to anybody right now.
I agree. Speaking of which, we also had the head of PlayStation kind of reinforce the same thing. I think this was talking about, he was talking in Britain though about the £70 being a fair price. There was this one quote again,
which it is not.
Which is, if you measure the hours of entertainment provided by a video game such as Demon's Souls compared to any other form of entertainment, I think that's a very straightforward comparison to draw. And this is where I would go back to, I wish that people would push on these people when they say this stuff of being like, it doesn't matter what you think the price is. The price of an object is what the market will bear. So if the market will bear a markup in game price, then you can go ahead and do it. But if you mark your games up to $70 and suddenly like people can't afford to buy video games, then, or people don't believe that it's worth £70, then they're not going to buy it. It doesn't matter whether it costs you £70 to make it. You need to figure out a way to bring the cost down. This is like fucking macroeconomic theory from the 1800s. Like these people are just like, well, we think that getting 40 hours of video game is worth $70. It's like, that's not the equation.
I mean, video games are such big business, especially on these high-end companies like a 2K, like an Activision, like even Sony stuff, right? Like it is the largest entertainment industry we've ever had as a society. So we have not spent a lot of time figuring out the best way to do this. So I think saying, especially in this case where, you know, he's talking to the Telegraph and they're talking about £70, the idea that £70 specifically is a fair price, it's not. None of the price currency conversion stuff is a fair price. So $70 American and £70
it's not 92 American dollars. £70
that's literally not a fair price. It's actually not a fair price. So what the fuck, Jim Ryan?
Especially for Demon's Souls, when like wasn't the Blue Point remake of Shadow of the Colossus was like $40 on day one? Was that a full $60 game when it originally came out? I thought that was less than 60 when they put it out.
That sounds correct. That does sound correct.
I mean, I know Yakuza Kiwami was like $20 on day one. I'm pretty sure it was it was very cheap on day one. In any case, yeah, $92 for Demon's Souls. If they had wanted $92 for Demon's Souls, you guys can fucking keep Demon's Souls. I will come back when it is on sale. I have a PlayStation 3. It has Demon's Souls installed on it. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see. From there, we do have some stuff about the PlayStation problems. I didn't decide to go into this because, as you said, a lot of this is growing pains, and I really do sympathize with anybody having difficulty. It seems like a lot of the problems on the PlayStation are about the rest mode, not like going into rest and resuming and turning it off. And then I feel like I've also seen a lot of trouble with hooking up an external hard drive for like PS4 storage. Now, because I swap my or I'm used to swapping my consoles out to record for Rage Select, I never suspend games and I always turn the console all the way off. So that's just like what I'm used to. I haven't run into anything yet. I was actually going to ask, have you run into any of the database rebuild stuff or any of that?
I was going to go into this podcast today and say no, but actually just today I did. Last night, I believe this was the case. Last night I was playing the Final Fantasy X remaster on the PlayStation 5. Put the console into sleep mode while the game was running, because most of the times that I had put it into sleep mode or just powered it off, I had closed out the game. And I for whatever reason, I do remember last night being like, okay, I want to kind of see what this looks like booting into rest mode, because I had not done that before, booting out of rest mode directly into the game, which would be a cool, fast experience if it had worked. And then I turned it on today and I realized that the game was not running, which is also something very difficult to tell on the PlayStation 5 home screen, that a game is running at all. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And what was it? I booted into something for a minute and the whole console shut down. It either shut down or it went to an error screen. It went to a report, an error screen. Mm-hmm. And then it did a very brief database rebuilding. I don't have an external hard drive, but that was my experience with having a game on in rest mode. And that's a little worrisome, right? I think the way that the PlayStation 5 paradigm is set of just like, hey, when you want to play a game, just hit play and you'll boot into the game really fast, and we won't even ask you if you want to close the other game. Like, I think that all works if you could trust that, like, the thing's going to autosave and it's not going to crash in the middle of your fucking game.
Yep.
And so I was very worried that the game that I had played for a minute would corrupt because of this. I don't believe that that's the case, but not a good sign. You know, these things are all coming in really, really hot.
Yeah, I definitely think that it is worthwhile right now for all these new consoles to just like, I wouldn't try it. I wouldn't try to be running 6 Xbox games and flip. Well, last week on the podcast, I say, I don't know who the hell these people are that need to be running Yakuza and Fortnite and Assassin's Creed and Mortal Kombat all at the same time and just be like, I'm tired of this one, going over to this one, just like flopping between games. But
if it works, if that experience works though, Jeff,
yeah,
that would be incredible. I'm only playing a couple of games right now on this PlayStation. If it was like actually able to suspend those games and put them into cold storage or whatever, and you can swap back into them relatively quickly, that would be really cool. And because that's just even faster. And I don't know, man. It's a lot of new baby kinks, man.
It's funny because a lot of times this is why I love talking with my friends who don't like specifically run a video game YouTube channel, because I always am like, I am going to play the game. Here is the game. I play the game. I stop playing the game. I turn off my console. Like, the scenario that you just described of wanting to like swerve from one game to another, it sounds so alien to me. It's like, well, I have to finish Like a Dragon so I can review it, and then I need to go from there to Watch Dogs Legion because I kind of wanted to play that, and then after that I'm going to play Cyberpunk. So it's like I literally have my entire Destiny on mapped out, and then I'm going to play Destiny after that. But yeah, I don't know. The main point of this is I just kind of wanted to PSA everybody, like, if I were you, I wouldn't hook up external storage. I wouldn't suspend games, and I would make sure to turn your consoles off at least until they have a few months to figure out what the fuck and like get a patch out. Like, I really don't have any doubt that there is going to be a patch to fix this bullshit. I mean, it took Sony like, what was it, like 4 months to put out the patch to let you turn off HDCP to let you capture stuff on the PlayStation 4. Like,
right.
I'd use a...
And I mean, like, the PS5 doesn't even have fucking folders. Like,
yeah.
So this is very unfinished code running on these machines still.
Yep. The main thing for the PlayStation 5 is turn off the power saving, because if the power saving is on, it'll set to like, oh, if you just walk away and it's idle for 15 minutes, by default, it will put it into rest mode, which then might cause problems coming out of rest mode later. So, quick PSA. In other PSAs, it appears that the PS5 DualSense controller can be used on Steam this week. Steam, Valve put out some kind of beta compatibility stuff that lets both the Xbox Series X and the PS5 controller run as Steam controllers. Apparently, the Series X controller was showing up as two controllers for a little while, but it's fixed now. You don't get any of the haptic stuff. You don't get any of the trigger stuff. It's all just a basic controller, but you can totally use it on Steam, which...
Yeah, I wonder what it's like developing that stuff, especially on the PC platform, because it did seem like recently, at least in the past few years, that using a PS4 controller on a PC has been an acceptable input method versus like an Xbox controller. And you know, part of that was like, oh yeah, the touchpad is basically just a mouse, right? Like, and so hopefully developing for like the adaptive triggers and for the haptics and stuff is also relatively open, right? Something that PC developers can just throw in like they would with the console versions, and it'll just work when you have the controller.
I really do wonder how much extra work it is. Like, yeah. Are there just like, I wonder if Sony has like a library of haptic vibrations, and it's just like, okay, if rain, then do Sony Rain, right? Like if magic, then do Big Blast 2, you know, But it'll be interesting to see how much that stuff gets, because I really do miss it when I play. I've been playing, mostly Demon Souls, and then when I want to like play for real in the evening, I'll pull up Yakuza, and I really do miss it when I go to Yakuza. That it's just basic rumble. None of the trigger stuff is there. None of the haptic feedback is there. It's just a basic Xbox game, kind of like the previous generation. It's starting to feel. It's like that thing when we all got like HD TVs, and like at first you were like, wow, it's really sharp, but my old SD TV is fine. I'm going to keep watching it. And then you watch the HD TV for too long, and then you try to go backwards, and you're just like, oh, my eyes. No.
Yeah. It's why I haven't got that 4K TV yet, Jeff. Hi.
They're so cheap, Bryce. They're so cheap for Black Friday.
I know. Oh man, don't get me started on TVs. Don't get me started on TVs.
Let's see. We also got a story saying that they wouldn't. This is the same Jim Ryan guy at that same conference. Basically, refused to specify whether God of War Ragnarok is going to be PS5 exclusive or cross generational. I think anybody who listens to this podcast knows that I'm willing to give Sony a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I'm kind of a Sony guy. I mean, I like Microsoft. I don't really. I haven't enlisted in the console wars. Like, I don't really have a side, but I dig like what Sony does. I really do think that they need to be upfront, because like we didn't know that Horizon 2 was going to be on the PS4. We didn't know Miles Morales was going to be on the PS4 for a while. I really do think they need to be upfront, especially with the fact that the consoles right now are so sold out, so difficult to get, that like, if you're excited for God of War Ragnarok, you might consider buying like a PS5 from a scalper on eBay before you knew. Like if you were to go out of your way to acquire a PS5 right now, and then it turns out like, oh no, it's also going to be on the PS4 and it's going to look great on the Pro. It's going to run at 4K. That console runs at 4K. Like, yeah, you won't get all the bells and whistles, but like it'll be fine, and you'll get a free upgrade. Well, then you might relax your search for a next gen console. So I wish they would be more upfront with this stuff instead of being coy about it like they do.
And do we have a year for Ragnarok? Is Ragnarok definitely going to be 2021?
I don't think. It
looks like
yes. Yeah, sometime in 2021.
So, like, that makes me believe that game is far enough in development that they know. But right now, I understand this as we have no announcements about God of War today, but just tell us and just rip the Band-Aid off, because I'm assuming that the correct answer behind the curtain is that God of War Ragnarok will be a cross-gen game. And that they're going to pull out the same thing, which is like it's been built from the ground up for PlayStation 5 and take advantage of all the PS5 stuff. And also we have a version of the experience on the PlayStation 4. Like, at least that's what this whole first 2 years is going to be anyway. So just like, let's just do that. And like you said, Jeff, like let people just plan out what it is they're going to do, especially when there's so much tension about actually securing the consoles.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. From there, we're just going to run through a couple quick Demon Souls stories because of Demon Souls. I mean, there's a new Souls game, people. There's going to be things like, I didn't even bring in the one where a guy found out a way to mess up the stat system to make you one-shot everything in the game by basically like double applying a luck stat and then using the one weapon in the game that bases off the luck. Like, you break the luck stat and then you use the one sword that takes that into consideration. It does like a billion damage. But so for the most part, Blue Point has kept Demon Souls the same, but there is this one new door behind an illusory wall in World 1.3. It used to be that there were only illusory walls in the fourth world. Now there's this one in there, and there's a locked door. And if you go like kind of around the map from where that door is, you can go into photo mode and basically like go up, and it'll show that there's an item behind that door on a dead corpse, like on this little balcony. But so far, nobody knows how to get that door open, and Blue Point ain't talking. So people are trading stuff, and they're trading stuff with the crows, which is a way to get stuff. They're trying to like certain world tendencies, having a certain number of items, using certain types of stats. Like, this is a thing that I feel like Souls players really love when they find something that they can't do, and then they're like, all right, it's a race to see who can figure it out first. But
that's cool. I wonder what that is, because I know they made a few new items for like the pre-order bonuses, right? Like, they actually created some new items for the game. I wonder if it's going to be that sort of prize, or maybe this is like an unused rabbit hole for some sort of DLC maybe to come.
Well, it's
in the future.
It's really kind of weird to me, because the other story that I had about Demon Souls was Bluepoint talking about briefly considering putting in an easy mode for Demon Souls early on in the development. And it's like they kind of floated it and thought about it, but then they thought that they wanted to basically just like hew as closely as possible to the initial design of Demon Souls to basically, I think they said that they kind of wanted to be like caretakers of Demon Souls. They just wanted to get like a version out there. Now, that's a little like, the original Demon Souls you could only roll in 4 cardinal directions. You could roll forward, back, left, or right. And like now there's 8-way rolling, which definitely
it really is next gen.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, they have made changes. There are those new items that you were talking about. There's a few new things, but it does bring up an interesting thing that I always like to just kind of throw out there about, if you're remaking something like Demon Souls, do you basically just kind of like leave everything the way it was? Like, I haven't checked, Bryce, but I don't know if you know this. I don't think I've ever seen a From Software game. There's one NPC in Dark Souls 3, but outside of him, none of the NPCs in any of the Souls games move their lips when they talk. And all of the NPCs in Dark Souls Remastered move their lips when they talk. Or Demon Souls Remastered, move their lips when they talk. And it's weird to talk to them and see their little lips flapping up and down. But it does bring up an interesting question of just like, for a game that is this beloved, are you just like, okay, your job is to just make it look as pretty as possible, modernize the menus, add a couple of quality of life things, and just get out of there. And I've always had this question, because like there's not really a super good reason for me, again, to play this game. I already know how to beat all the bosses. I already know where everything is.
But you like playing it.
Yeah.
You like playing it, right?
It's sort of. I mean, like the thing is, it's not that Souls games, I don't know about you. I bet there's somebody out there that can probably relate to this, but there are some games that I've played a lot. Like, I played BioShock like a gajillion times. And so when I play BioShock, I know everything is, and there's like it is almost like a mechanical, like you're just doing this kind of repetitive action over and over again, and you already know what you're going to do, and you know how this is going to work out. You know what you're going to equip and like what you're going to put points into, but you're just doing it because it's there. And in this case, it's nice to see all the pretty new visuals, but it doesn't have the same thrill that something like Yakuza has for me, where it's like, this is so bizarre and different than anything I've played previously. I mean, Demon Souls is the prototype for Dark Souls, which then became everything else as time went on. So I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm. I, as someone who is on the outside of the whole Souls experience, like, I've been tempted by this Demon Souls. I'm always a little tempted by these games, but in general, like, I know that I play them and I pound my head against a wall for a few hours, and then I regret even bothering having tried. So so for me, in a very personal, like, I would have used
easy mode.
Easy mode probably would have sold a copy of this game for me. But I also recognize, like, that is not the way From Software made Demon Souls. It's not how they made any of the Souls games after. It's not necessarily Blue Point's decision to make. And I can just, we can agree to disagree, and, maybe next time, maybe make an Armored Core game next and I'll buy it.
Yeah.
but it would have been cool. It would have been cool to get what you're talking about. I played 1 hour of Bloodborne, and all of that looked cool. All the little story bits and the way it like that was all cool. Mm-hmm. But man, I don't fucking like playing that game, Jeff. I don't want to play that shit. No, thank you.
I've been looking. I've been trying to get somebody that I don't know into Demon Souls, because the thing is that 2 of my friends imported Demon Souls when it was brand new. They played Hong Kong versions of it on PlayStation 3. And then when it came out in the US, I was like, God, you guys won't shut up about this game. I guess I'll fucking buy it and see what's going on. And so they were my guides. They were my Sherpas into the Souls. They told me how to play the game. They helped me with all the bosses. They explained the things that were inscrutable about the upgrade system and the world tendency system and like how to play the game. And I've never paid back my Souls debt to anyone. And so I'm looking for somebody to pay off my Souls debt to. But I don't know. The thing is that this brings up a really interesting question. And I'm going to ask that question after we take a break, because we've been going at this for a little while. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to ask this question. We're going to do the rest of the news. And I don't know, we might get to question, one audience question. I knew when I put these tabs up that this was going to happen. So we'll be right back. And it's time for that question I was going to say. So
the question.
I was thinking a lot about Souls games, easy mode. I mean, I am not one of those like you shouldn't have an easy mode, but I got to thinking when I was playing Demon Souls, and then I saw this article about putting an easy mode in, about what kind of experience it would be to play Demon Souls, but to be able to, like complete a boss, like not have to fight Flame Lurker 8 times and have to go down this, the shortcut. Like, I'm wondering if it would be like if you would. I know that this is one of the arguments that a lot of people talk about hard mode or about easy mode, that you would lose something by not having that experience of finally overcoming something that you failed at a number of different times, which I think has value. But then I also am very I have a lot of sympathy for like what you were describing, where you don't want to play a game where you have to basically be stuck on one level for 3 days and finally have to look up like what resistances this boss has and like build grind levels and get the right equipment and go look up a guide on how to beat the second boss in the game.
And like, I'm not opposed to like, grinding or leveling, but it's so demanding. It's so specific with a lot of the Souls tactics that beyond just, having to progress my player character, like just the emotional toll of like, I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of like the early days of Minecraft when there was no tutorial and there was like some information online that some people had written up, but there wasn't, the big wikia and stuff now.
Yeah.
And because that's a really frustrating experience. I mean, it's like as a personality trait, I hate doing things over again. I hate losing my progress or having to redo anything. I hate it. I hate telling the same stories. I hate having these same conversations over and over again. It is,
well, this podcast must be just murderous to you.
It's a bad line of work to be in. It's a bad line of work to be in for me. But
so then because that actually got me thinking about how like rather than an easy mode, something akin to like Hades's God mode might work. And like if you like separated it for each level, right? So that like every level got a little bit easier. Or in Dark Souls 2, there were a finite number of enemies. So if you killed the same enemy, I believe 10 to 12 times, they just stopped respawning. Now that was really weird.
Even across like deaths?
Yeah, no, like if you went through the level and let's say that you were like stuck on these knights at the beginning and you killed the first knight and then you kept getting killed by the second knight, and it was like after a certain amount of banging your head up against that level, there was like a pool of those enemies and they would just disappear. And that caused some really weird stuff when it came to like grinding for materials, because certain enemies had certain drops, and if you didn't get those drops and you killed them enough times, and they would just go away and you didn't get them again. But I do feel like there's a way to make a more accessible mode for Souls games that, like, especially the kind of Hades thing where if you have to lose to the boss, but you have the knowledge that each time you lose, it's going to like drop it down by like a 10%, so that you know that if you keep at it, you will eventually get that boss to a point where it's going to be easier than it was the first time. Or, like in Demon Souls, you have to run through the levels a lot of times to get to the boss. So if you knew that after running through the level 10 or 12 times, you were just going to be able to run right to the boss and there wouldn't be enemies there anymore. I feel like there's stuff that could be done outside of the just like, here's baby mode and here's the manly gamer mode, and there's just like nothing between the two of those things.
And I like that. I like that in Hades, and I conceptually like what you just described, Jeff, for a Souls game, where it is where a player who is in trouble, a player who needs help, is getting a buff, but at the end of the day is still going through the same board. They're going through the same stages and fighting the same enemies, and at the end of the day, they're doing all of the things that the people who are very mad about easy modes would see as sacred. It's like, okay, but you're at least playing the thing, even if you are one-shotting everything through. At least you are going through the whole game. At least in some ways as designed.
Yeah,
I like that.
And like for another mechanic, I mean, just to go into it, like, the other problem with Demon Souls is that a lot of the stuff from Demon Souls got ironed out in later games. So like you could go online and request assistance from somebody by turning human in the game. But in Demon Souls, turning human opens you up to invasion from other players. And then the other thing is that if you die in Demon Souls when you're in human form, it shifts this mechanic called world tendency to black, which means that the game gets harder. So like if you get human mode and bring in somebody to help you fight a boss and then you lose to that boss and die, technically the game actually gets harder at that point. The next time you go through it, which is in my opinion, if you understand that mechanic, would be a real impediment. You wouldn't want to do it, right? The last thing you want to do is make Demon Souls harder. So like, but I don't know. The other thing that I got to thinking about, which was my segue, was I kept thinking when it comes to difficulty about Hitman, and how when Jason played Hitman, he played Hitman 1, he followed the story, he did the assassination, and then he went to the next level and played the next level. He beat Hitman 1 in like 8 hours and was like, yeah, I don't know, it was all right. And it's like, right. But the thing about Hitman is not just beating it once, it's about going through and finding all of the stuff. And the game doesn't force you to find all the stuff. You have to kind of go and do that on your own. And I can see there's an entirely different experience with just playing Hitman, following the story missions, doing those one time, and then just going, I'm done, as opposed to going and doing all these crazy different things that you can do in every level. So,
I think it's a little bit of a tough comparison between the two, because like, I'm assuming, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but like, the Souls games, Demon Souls is a difficult game, but it's rather linear, right? Like you're taking a path to do the thing to get it done, right? Like there's some exploration involved with Hitman that everybody playing that game needs to be motivated to do, even if you're doing the story missions, because there are a lot of different story mission options as well.
The only reason that it occurred to me was just because going to different areas in the Hitman levels, they're obviously more dense and larger, but the Souls levels do have like, side paths, nooks, crannies, stories that you'll only get if you go over here, some things you'll only get if you replay the same level over and over again, shortcuts that unlock. Like, there is a benefit. And then also, one of the things with the Souls games is that part of the experience is like internalizing the geometry of all of the levels and kind of memorizing all the locations. And I don't think that anybody's going to get that just like going through one time. So I think that part of that experience is the repetition. Like, when you talk about Bloodborne, it reminded me that like one of the things that was one of the things that happened when I played Bloodborne was that when I first played it, the enemies were very intimidating, and that as I played the game more and more, it became much more mechanical, and then I was able to look at them from this very kind of cold threat assessment stuff. But it's like you have to have this repetitive encounter to like take the fear edge down to like a tactics edge, right? The first time a werewolf jumps in and tries to rip your face off, you're going to be like, shit. And then, once you played the game for hundreds and hundreds of hours, you know exactly what's going on. I don't know. Maybe out of the limb here.
I also think that we have to figure out what the goal is in some of these conversations for this, right? Like, is the idea like we want more people to play Demon Souls? Or is it we want more people to play Demon Souls in the way X person would prefer, right? I mean, and they're two very different things. If you just want more people to play Demon Souls, right, then an easy way to do that is make a more accessible mode, make options, some sort of buffing system, whatever, and change the gameplay so that you can get whatever story bits or seeing a whole progression through the game. Versus like, I want people to play this game the way it is. Well, how long have the Souls games been out here? They're kind of a known quantity at this point. And so if they don't evolve or change to make themselves inherently more accessible or more, not more accessible, more enticing for people to play it, then that's on the genre more than anything else could be. So it's tough, like Jason's experience with Hitman, like you described, he goes through and he plays level, and he's done, and he doesn't really know the story or anything. Like, I also think that's valid. Like, I think you should be able to play Hitman like that and have a better handle on what is actually happening. I think that's partly a shortcoming of the design, not more strongly for pushing the player through this optimal path. But I also think that, like, if you want to play that game, like I said, like, I would buy Demon Souls if there was an easy mode, and I wouldn't be playing the game that you played, Jeff. I would be playing a different game called Demon Souls and seeing all of the stuff and getting a lot of the story and stuff. But then at the end of the day, then I can talk to people about Demon Souls.
True.
So it's about objective here. And I think especially if you're Blue Point and you're remastering this game and there is a lot of pressure on you from everybody, the safest thing you can do is say, there was no easy mode in the original game, so we're giving the purists the pure Demon Souls experience. And like, at least that is not a good or a better or worse position. That is a firm decision. That is, we have made the decision, we're doing this, everyone knows going in what this thing is.
Yeah.
And at least you know what it is going in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of Hitman, today there was an announcement. Oh, what an exciting announcement. Yesterday, there was a tease that IO Interactive was going to be announcing something new, something that's not Hitman that they're doing. And they are making a James Bond video game. Which,
well, not just a James Bond game, Jeff.
Yes. A prequel.
The first, quote, wholly original Bond story. It is an origin story. Wait, is it an origin story or an original story? Did I not read this right?
It's an origin story with the working title Project 007, a wholly original Bond story exclusively as a video game. So it's not connected to any of the previous Bond mythos. And it's also an origin story about 007 getting the 00 status or whatever, which really just, I mean, come on. This seems right up their alley. I do hope, though, I don't think they're just going to slap a 007 skin on Hitman and make it
that be cool?
Just put a wig on 47 and be like, there he is, James Bond, everybody.
It would be very interesting to see a radical retooling, though, of the Hitman engine. Because the Hitman engine is kind of designed to, play Hitman, right? To do the things that you do in Hitman. It would be really interesting to see. And this is all. Now I'm now making things up just in case anyone's not aware. It would be very cool to see that Hitman engine as a spy for a spy game, like a Metal Gear Solid, right? Like something in that direct. It's very much stealth and action, and blending that in a way where I don't think there are too many stealth games out there now. And certainly not I don't know, you would think old school, quote unquote, old school style like Metal Gear Solid, which is what I feel out of the Hitman engine.
Yeah, it's funny when I think about it that I feel like there are probably a bunch of sliders in the engine for Hitman that could totally make it into a more action focused game. Because, you can just play Hitman like an action game. It's difficult, but if you imagine that 007 had 3 times the health that Agent 47 has, okay. And so you've already got, your lavish globe-trotting high society, secret society, doing covert operations thing. There's totally stealth mechanics in Hitman that with a little bit of retooling could be made to be a little bit more sneaky and a little bit less of the put on the right costume type of thing. But, they've got a lot of tools in there for traversal. They're very good at level design and kind of different. What they nail, which I think is going to be a really good thing for a Bond game, is that Hitman knows how to, or IO specifically knows how to do safe social areas that are not action, which in a lot of ways works well for 007 sneaking into a vault through a party. So IO knows how to make a big lavish party with a bunch of people in tuxedos, and then you've got to sneak past the guards, and there are a few different ways to do that. If they just kind of dirtied up the mechanics, Hitman is so sharp, it's so precise in its camera moves and its button presses. I feel like I would want to take that outside and rub it in the dirt a little bit to make it seem a little a little bit more worn in than it feels in Hitman. But I can totally see a little bit more health, a little bit snappier, maybe some different weapons, make the weapons work
and more
a little differently.
Guided design.
Yeah. If you took the main story walkthrough story threads from the Hitman games and then gave you a little bit of splitting off for side stuff, I think that'd be great. I think it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm just imagining a version of the Hitman engine where you're pulling heists, and heists are pre-planned, but you have execution. Yeah, I think it's promising. It was not anything. The announcement that it would be a Bond game was not even on my list of what this could have been. There was a lot of talk, well, maybe it'll be an original thing, but no, this is perfect. It just makes sense the second you hear it.
Yeah. And when you, and also just when you look at the way that IO does the music and the cut scenes and all that stuff, that could just very easily swap out. Well, I feel like I've read a bunch of reviews of Hitman 2016 and Hitman 2 that were oh, this is a James Bond game. It just, you happen to be a bald guy that shoot people, but you got a silenced pistol, you're sneaking into places you shouldn't be, you're gathering intelligence, you're setting up, these kind of things. All that's missing is a few big bombastic set piece action sequences, and then maybe tighten the levels in a little bit to account for that. I don't know, throw in a driving mechanic, let me like jump out of a plane, drive a snowmobile, like do a few things.
Ooh. Yeah.
Boom, you're good to go. Like or maybe put a dialogue tree or two in there to let me customize my James Bond experience.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Build a Bond.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
The Build a Bond workshop. Let's see. From there, let's talk about Twitch. Boy, Twitch is kind of just garbage right now.
The tough month to be Twitch.
Yeah. So last week we talked a lot about Twitch's whole DMCA takedown stuff that's been happening, their lack of tools, the fact that like whispering and like wind-blown sound effects are getting copyrighted. So in the midst of all this, Twitch decided to add this thing where if you subscribe to this music label called Monster Cat with the $5 a month Twitch subscription, you can get affiliate status for your channel. Is it affiliate status? Yeah, it's yes. Affiliate and then partner, right?
Mm-hmm. And so affiliate means that you can get, people can give you bits and people can subscribe to you.
Yeah, and you can basically get money, which previously, I mean, like when I didn't have affiliate status for a long time, and then when I finally got it, it was like you have to stream over a certain number of days, you have to have a certain number of people that watch, and you basically have to prove that you're like serious about this instead of just giving $5 to a music label.
Well, but like affiliate, when they had recently, I mean, I don't know, in the past 12 to 24 months, they had changed kind of affiliate and made it a more programmatic thing. Like for everybody, you just got to hit these requirements, and they're not terribly high requirements. If what you're saying is people should pay me monthly to do this, right? It's like you have to average like 3 viewers and stream a certain number of days, stream a certain number of hours, a relatively low compared to like partner status, which has other incentives. Yeah. And so I think like if you want to be affiliate, and you know, it's a thing where it would materially affect you, you probably are going to be of a certain skill level anyway to do it on your own. So saying like, okay, or you subscribe to Monster Cat for a month, and then after that month, they'll just give you affiliate. Like, I think the bar is already so low that if you need to do this, then go for it, because it's not going to be that big of a deal anyway. Like, I think if you are someone who affiliate status is either a major part of your life, you know, or something you expect to be rather profitable, this is like not a big deal. You already should have been able to do this, or you need to maybe consider like maybe you're good. Maybe you could just have fun with that. I think this is very weird, though. I do think it's bizarre, and of course, this is while all the GlitchCon stuff is happening, where they're announcing new things, not DMCA related. I think this is fine. I don't know. I also like spoiler alert. I like Monster Cat. I subscribe to Monster Cat. I think they do good stuff, but just not a good time for this right now on Twitch.
Yeah,
you need to deal with other stuff.
I don't know. I guess I don't really even know what Monster Cat is, but this story that I was reading made it sound like some kind of record label, and like I have a lot of bad feelings right now for all record labels and music in general. Like, I don't know. The Twitch stuff, I guess I've just seen over the last, I don't know, as part of putting videos on YouTube, and then the stuff that's going on with Twitch right now, where it's just like the draconian measures that record labels are going to, where they just own your ass if you've got 2 seconds worth of anything that's considered a song in a video is, well, somebody on my Discord was complaining. We did Spider-Man Miles Morales for one of our dojo videos, and I even had the gameplay audio on that pretty low, and when it played that Jaden song or whatever, there's like a full song kind of at the beginning, and it caught that, and so it was monetized, which meant that for a 40-minute video, it put like 2 ads in front and like 3 ads after 10 minutes and like 3 more ads after another 15 minutes and then like a bunch of ads at the end, where I always set it so that it's only ads at the beginning and the end, because I don't want to, I have a Patreon. I don't want to irritate my viewers having to watch the ads that Google puts in there when you just set it to mid-roll ads. It puts so many mid-roll ads in.
Yeah, it puts a lot on.
So I don't know. That might be why I'm a little salty with this.
Well, and Monster Cat's whole thing has been like they're a Canadian record label who put out music like 4 times a week, like a ton of new music all the time, and all of it. I'm going to say all, and imagine there's an asterisk above all because it's almost all of their music is like stream friendly. You can play it on Twitch. You don't even technically need to pay them if you're just streaming on Twitch. The $5 a month means that you can get downloads and you can put it on YouTube and they won't bother you on YouTube.
Okay.
And they've been doing that for a long time, right? Like I think I think that they are one of the better ones of these services where they have a whole library of music that you can stream and make videos with. So I think that's a part of it, but I think a lot of people are not going to know what Monster Cat is. I think they're just going to see, I can give a record company $5 and then I can get partner. Like it's weird. They had done a similar thing with SoundCloud a while ago for SoundCloud musicians so that they could kind of get fast tracked to making money on Twitch if they have a sizable audience on SoundCloud. This is maybe there's not as much of that veil for this, but whatever. It's $5, and if you need this, it's not like you were gonna make a lot of right. Like, am I crazy on that? Am I being harsh on this? Like, if affiliate is such a huge deal, you should be able to get that on your own. They want everyone to have that because that means that Twitch makes a cut,
right,
if you make any money.
Yeah, no, it's not a super big. It's definitely not as big a deal as like the DMCA stuff that we've seen happen before.
Yes.
It's just like I think what you were saying before, slightly bad optics maybe at this particular point in Twitch's history. Also, it reminded me that one of the things that was on that Cyberpunk presentation was about the music in the game, and they said that Cyberpunk is set up so that if you start streaming on like one of the consoles, it turns on this flag that turns off any like serious licensed music and uses all of their internal tracks and doesn't use the Grimes song and the Run the Jewels song and stuff like that. And that's actually an option that you could just turn on, like if you're recording a YouTube video, to make sure the radio in the game doesn't play music that is going to get flagged by YouTube, which, as somebody who does that, I really appreciate. So
yeah, a handful of games do that, and it's very nice when they do. I know Life is Strange, because I played Life is Strange 2 recently. They have an option for that because they use a lot of licensed music. Okay, but I think their option, because that game is, a very linear narrative game, I think that option just muted those music. So like the beginning of the first episode starts with like a long intro sequence where Phoenix's Listomania is playing just diegetically. When you turn that option off, you're just silently watching the suburbs and this bus for minutes. It's like, well, okay.
That's where. Well, you could always put in your own music, like some people have been doing on Twitch. We got a couple of videos here from people who basically were kind of making their own sound effects. I actually. Was it Lobos that I was watching? He's like a Souls streamer, and like one of the things he would do if he hit a certain limit, he's played all the Souls games so many times that he would do all the sound effects himself, but he knows all the sound effects, so he'd literally make the noise for every footfall and every like swing of the sword, and it was like really kind of impressive. But there were a few examples in this Polygon article that I pulled up of people putting in their own sound effects.
My favorite are anytime there's a music games player doing one. Like there's one here I think he's playing Guitar Smith, and he's got the music muted, so he's playing along the guitar to the song, but you can't hear it. There's nothing going on. There's no music. That's very funny to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It would be interesting to maybe that's what we need to do, Bryce, is we need to become the music cat of like we'll replace your entire sound effects with like homemade sound effects. Like if you created some kind of software that like listened to the sound coming from the game and then like was able to quickly throw in from a sample library stuff that sounded somewhat similar, just like on the stream delay.
Just a very wild idea here. I don't think that's impossible. Like, I think that you could, in the next maybe 2 or 3 years, with all the machine learning and on the fly ML stuff, like I bet you could feed into a machine learning thing your game audio and have it recreate the audio or tweak the audio in such a way that it's like, oh well, this is playing this song right now, but it's going to make a sound alike of that song. And it's here. Oh, it hears footsteps. It's going to like make a similar, but not the same footstep. Like that would be a very disastrous world that we live in. That would be a thing. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I'm saying we have the technology, Jeff, and we could definitely do something like that in the next couple of years.
I want to hear that Google AI try to recreate the dialogue from video games like it tries to recreate a picture of a dog that's made out of eyeballs and psychedelic swirling colors, where it knows what sounds are. Or have you ever seen those? Those YouTube videos where it's like they play the first 4 bars of like All Star by Smash Mouth and then have an AI try to continue the song after that, and you're just like, whoa, what is this? It's very strange.
Because I mean, Google Stadia, do I remember this right? Google Stadia has like those filters which were machine learning powered, where you could be playing, I don't know what games are on. So you could be playing Destiny on Stadia for some reason, and it would run it through you could have it run through a machine learning filter, kind of like the Prisma app, and it would output to you just like a very stylized, you could make it look like a watercolor painting or something. I swear that was a thing that they said they could do. Maybe I don't know if they do have it, but that was a thing that they said that they could do, and that would be a very similar thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but anyway, I don't know. Let's see. Moving on, we had this is a kind of a non-story. Ubisoft Montreal had kind of a fake like report of like an active shooter inside. So everybody went up on the roof.
Swatting. They got swatted.
Yeah, and they kind of locked the door down, and the police came and they checked it out, and there was nobody there. They don't have any real information on it, and everybody's super cool, or everybody is fine. They're not super cool. But yeah, it was nice to see. I saw this as it was developing. I'm glad that it turned out to be nothing. I really hope that this isn't somebody that's like mad about Assassin's Creed Valhalla or something. I really hope that this is it weird to say I really hope this is a crazy person and not a crazy like fan of Ubisoft that is like, when is Skull and Bones coming out? I
understand the sentiment. You don't want it to be a gamer. You wish this was a random act of violence. That's valid. I think that's a valid emotion to be feeling.
Yeah. Speaking of valid emotions and of Skull and Bones, boy, I'm going to butcher this. Hugh Ricoeur, who was the person in charge of Ubisoft's Singapore studio, has been taken out of being head of Ubisoft's Singapore studio. This is the studio that was making Skull and Bones. And this guy was pulled down after a quote-unquote leadership audit. Apparently, from the details that I got off of Kotaku's story about this, this is one of those guys that they had a problem with at Ubisoft where it was like, lots of inappropriate comments, lots of kind of like hitting on the lady staff, lots of like if you tried to stand up to him, he'd give you the shit job and make you work all weekend. Just this real fucking 1980s. We're going to have a bunch of beers at lunch, and if you don't come to the strip club with me after work, I'm not going to promote you kind of pieces of shit, which it appears that a lot of the Ubisoft upper executives were up until very recently. So I'm glad that this person is not running that studio anymore. The unfortunate end of this story is that they have not been released from Ubisoft entirely. They're going to be shuffled to another studio. We don't know where, we don't know which one and what they're going to be doing there yet. Which is, I mean, I don't know, fucking get rid of these guys. Like guys like, I don't know. From my experience working in the human world with running into this guy, from time to time as a boss, as a coworker, I don't get the impression that when this guy is getting taken off of being the director of Ubisoft Singapore, that he's like, oh my, I've done something terribly wrong. I need to reform my ways and think about what I'm doing with my life. Like most of my life, the people that I've run into that act like this, they don't reform very well. They will be sad they have gotten caught. They will be angry that people ratted them out. And I don't know this guy. Maybe I'm making a generalization that is unclear, but like I hate this personality type so much, and I've run into it a lot over the course of my life, and I hate people like this who just lord their power over the people and use their positions of authority to do whatever the fuck they want to. I find it to just be just horrible as a personality trait. And yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that this even happened, only given Ubisoft's, general disdain for wanting to deal with the topic at all.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, remember that last Ubisoft presentation during Hell season for video games? And it was like hours before that live presentation when they actually released a statement responding to a lot of the power abuse scandals. And, they put it out on Twitter right before, they were going to spend the next 3 hours announcing new things and showing off new games and stuff. Yep. And it wasn't in that presentation at all, right? It never made it into the presentation. I don't know why I had such a specific grudge with this. So that day they said, okay, well, we'll put it in the VOD after the fact. And hey, guess what? They fucking didn't do that. Like they really just show that they don't care, or that they will go out of their way to protect these abusers, really, as much as they can, and that works against the idea that okay, well maybe these people are interested in being reformed or really wanting a second chance. So those ideas clash and butt up against each other, and so I look at this and I go, well, it's like you said, Jeff, like they're just going to shuffle him somewhere else and hope that everyone forgets about this. And that is frustrating. That's frustrating because there's a world where it could have actually looked like Ubisoft was trying to make steps with this person and with their victims and the other employees there. And this doesn't feel like it. This is not it.
Yeah. I would have gotten rid of him. Even if you, I don't know, even if you hire him back on. I hate, the more I find out about this Ubisoft, about the way that Ubisoft as a company is run, it's just so gross where it's like, this family and all of their best dude buddies that run all these studios and make all these like super chunky military online. They may just make the exact same game with a different skin on it over and over and over again. And that, like, I don't know. I can't express how much I hate the attitude that you see of this like very general, just like I'm I have worked for a lot of people in my life, and there is a certain kind of person that really fucking loves being the boss. Like, they want to be the boss. And when they are the boss, they use that power because they're just like into it. They fucking, they want to be in charge of people. They deserve to be in charge of people. And like, yeah, I don't know. I really hope that Ubisoft shifts over time and that, like you said, it doesn't just become a thing where 2 years from now we've forgotten about this and this guy's running, Ubisoft, I don't know, Germany or whatever. But anyway, let's from there move on. We had a really big leak, hack ransomware leak from Capcom. I'm a little conflicted about these because on the one hand, I don't like to, ransomware sucks. Like, that's a crappy thing to do. But it appears that this team stole a bunch of data from Capcom, asked them for a ransom for it. They decided not to pay it. And so they released kind of a bunch of details, some of which are interesting. A lot of it is dates. So we found out that like the Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter, the Switch one, and then the other one, the Monster Hunter Stories 2, are going to be getting probably PC releases at some point. There was a tentative date for Resident Evil 8, I believe, in April. There was also some information that Resident Evil 8 might have some kind of battle royale mode in it.
Okay.
There was also a statement that apparently they're working on a Resident Evil 4 VR port for the Oculus, which I guess that's the old version of RE4. I'm wondering if it's going to be first person. That seems like it would be really weird.
I'm looking at like a list here of the next couple of years of Capcom, possible next couple of years of Capcom titles.
I know that just recently there was part of it that said, what, Street Fighter 6?
Street Fighter 6 2022.
Dragon's Dogma 2. They're probably going to be making another Dragon's Dogma.
Mm-hmm. That's 2022. Resident Evil Outbreak in 21. Rockman or Mega Man in North America would be 2022, whatever that is, a new fucking Mega Man game.
Yeah.
An RE4 remake, something that is just listed as SSF6. I wonder what that might be. Final Fight and Power Stone remakes, Ultra SF6.
Oh my God, they've got them both planned out already. Oh.
That's right. 6 in 2022, Super in 23, Ultra in 24.
Oh, boo!
Yeah.
There's also an Ace Attorney that they're
not.
Yeah,
Really?
there is. Yeah, it's called like Great Ace Attorney for the PS4, Switch, and PC, April 2021. And
I thought they stopped making those games.
Well, I think that these are ports of a Japanese-only 3DS set of Phoenix Wright games that I don't know that they've actually been released over here.
Okay.
But, because there was also a part of the story was about a bundle that had the Ace Attorney trilogy and then this all together for like the PlayStation that just has all the Ace Attorney games. There's some interesting stuff. What were you going to say?
This must suck, though, for a number of people like Capcom. I mean, this is not like, oh, here's what 2021 looks like in great detail. This is like, these are major plans over the next 4 or 5 years for this company. And now, I mean, whatever they end up actually being is not really pertinent here, but now for the next few years, Capcom is going to be kind of held against this piece of paper of like, hey, you ready to talk about Dragon's Dogma 2? It's like, well, okay, that there's a little bit of surprise lost, and also you now have this new expectation that people have seen printed on a blog and believe to be the way things will be in 24 months.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we knew Mass Effect remastered was going to be a thing for so many years. I mean, there's some of the stuff that I think is going to be fine. I mean, RE4 VR, I didn't know that, but I don't know. I mean, it also may just be that some of the titles that are on this list are not really, Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh my God. Like, I like Dragon's Dogma, but it's not like I was going to fall down on the floor and roll around because Dragon's Dogma 2 got announced.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see from there. We should probably zip through a few of these things. Oh, actually, no, there's a longer conversation to be had here. God damn it. So they announced the Game Awards 2020. The Game Awards 2020 nominees have been announced. You can go look up all the different categories, but the big one was Game of the Year: Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing: New Horizons, Last of Us Part 2. And the conversation that I wanted to have about this is that, like, because all this next generation stuff has launched so close to the end of the year, nothing past, what was it, like October or like November 4th, I think, November 6th, because all of the nominees are done by different media outlets and influencers, and the ballots have to be sent in by November 6th. So nothing that comes out after November 6th can be considered for Game of the Year 2020 on the Game Awards, which I think is total bullshit. Like, they should have these awards in January, because the idea of cutting November, especially this November, out of consideration of the things that could be on this list, to me is redonkulous. Like, Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be next November's Game Awards as a nominee for Best Game of 2021. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's just a lot of games that came out in that time period. There's this huge dump of games that came out in that time period. They're just not going to be on this list at all, which I think, considering the way that COVID has jacked up the first half of the year, I think it makes this list ridiculous. Like, I think this is a dumb list of games.
There's definitely a few games on this list, specifically the Game of the Year list, that I look side eye at Doom Eternal. But this is a problem with any awards show. Is like there is no small amount of accounting that has to go on between ballots being placed. Part of this described in one of these other stories was that, like, all these media outlets send in their ballots, and then they have a certain amount of time where they can change their ballot if they want to because of newer titles. I mean, yes, if they did this in January, then you would fully have everything in 2020, except in 2021, you would be putting games that come out in January or February in a weird place. But also, like, I think from not an editorial standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint for the Game Awards, it is not useful to be like, to have basically your Game of the Year stuff after the end of the year, right? By January 1, every blog, every news outlet will have put out their Game of the Year rankings and lists and top 10s and all of their discussions and their podcasts and their videos about it. And if the Game Awards is after all of that, then they lose some of their power. Then suddenly, oh, well, okay, you all gave the game we all agreed was Game of the Year to the Game of the Year. Like there's just unfortunate timing with that, and it's tough for any awards show.
I don't know. I think that I honestly think it should be baked into the. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just, it would be, like if they had the Academy Awards at the beginning of December and we all knew that the first 2 weeks of November were when some of the biggest movies of the year were going to come out. Like, I feel like it would behoove them to move this so that, move it to the end of December, for God's sake. Put it out on New Year's Eve. Say, like, New Year's Eve is when the Game Awards come out, and then we're going to get everything in there, because I don't know. It's so weird because of the way that this year has sorted out that this is the list. I mean, I take exception to Final Fantasy VII Remake being on there.
Oh, sure.
And I think it's really weird that Hades and The Last of Us, and I don't know. The other thing is that
you have two different forces at play here, right? You have the schedule of when games come out, and there's the big holiday season, and that's when a lot of games come out, and games come out late. Cyberpunk's not coming out till December. And if you're the Game Awards and you are formless, you can shape yourself to that and come out in January or February or something and truly analyze 2020 post-mortem. But the Game Awards is a business. Jeff Keighley can keep saying he's paying for it all, but there's a lot of money in advertising that goes into it, and so it also has to be its own promotional thing, which I hate. I wish it looked like what you were describing, Jeff. I wish it was a very focused, examination of the previous year, instead of being, a 3-hour commercial for fucking Godfall or whatever. Like it is this other thing. It is the Super Bowl commercials thing. It has to be an advertising platform as well as an award ceremony, and it can only be very powerful if it is in the middle of this holiday season when all these companies will pay so that they can get Christmas sales, Christmas promotion and stuff. Yeah. I don't love it. I generally don't like the Game Awards at all. I will keep watching them every year, and I don't have a good time with them, and I don't like them, and I don't think that they make the right calls a lot of the time either. But
okay.
It's the same thing with the Grammys.
I watch it for the trailers, and that's pretty much it. Especially since
those trailers would suck. Those trailers would suck if the Game Awards were in January. Just telling you.
I'm going to say, why don't you just do Christmas time E3, call it E4, and just put a bunch of trailers up. They keep doing, I don't know if you remember the last time they did it, where they've gotten into this thing where they just rapid fire through like 5 categories and don't even like give anybody anything. They're just like, all right, best this, best this. So
they'll put categories in the pre-show, the hour-long show before the show.
Yep.
Any game that wins the game of the year, and would have won in another category that it's in, they always collapse those down so that, Breath of the Wild wins Game of the Year, and also Best Music and Best Action Game and all the other trophies that we're going to get, because we need to put a lot of trailers in this thing. It's whorish. It's fucking a spectacle. I hate.
You hear that, Keighley? Bryce is coming for you. He's challenging you.
That's right. The real Game Awards coming in January.
We should do that. We should make our own award show. We'll make our own award show. Let's see.
For the 10th year, Bloodborne. Wow, congratulations,
Bloodborne. How did that work? Damn it, I don't watch these awards anymore. It's either a Dark Souls game or Hitman or Metal Gear, and those are the only things that ever get winner. Yeah. Speaking of great games that aren't being talked about on the Game Awards, Star Wars Squadrons is getting a bunch of new stuff. Or I also could have used the segue. Speaking of saying one thing and meaning another. No, that doesn't work. I'm going to stick with what I got. They specifically said a few months back, we're not putting anything else in Star Wars Squadrons. We're not going to do it. We're done. We made the game. That's the game. We're not putting anything else in it. They're putting more stuff in it. I'm not complaining about it. It's just a little weird that they were very emphatic, I guess, trying to distance themselves from games as service, DICE, Battlefront, Fallout, even though obviously when they made that statement, they had to be working on these things that are in the game now. So, yes, but on November 25th, you're going to be getting the Four-Star Haven map from the main campaign, which is a cool looking map, as well as some new different components, boosters, ion rockets, piercing torpedoes, blah, blah, blah. And then in December, the real cool shit, they're putting in the B-Wing and the TIE Defender as new ships that you can use to fight on the maps. And that's great because Star Wars Squadrons was a really, really, really fun game. Super fun. $40, 8 hours long. Works crazy good in VR. Just super good. Super good. And nothing good stuff to say about it.
Yeah, and these are free. Are these free DLC?
Yes, 100%.
That's great. It's good to see that. I appreciate both the sentiment that they said, like, this is not going to be a live services game, but also, hey, here's some more stuff. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like, I mean, Ghost of Tsushima added a whole multiplayer mode and all sorts of stuff for free as well. I think it's cool. It's almost like it's like a concert now of game development. Like, there's going to be an encore, so just let's figure out what the encore is also. Because you need a promotional cycle. You need people to keep talking about it, and this is probably great for Star Wars Squadron because I keep hearing that it's great, and I can imagine that if you were someone who would be interested in this game, you would also be skeptical of it.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. We also are getting, I don't know, we got to go kind of fast for some of these. We're starting to kind of get down towards the end. Fortnite is getting a video chat app integration, which I find to be very bizarre. Apparently, Epic bought this app called Houseparty, where you can kind of pull up this sidebar and do video chat with your friends, like while you're playing Fortnite through the app on your phone. This is very bizarre. This is very strange. I don't know about video chatting with your friends while you're playing a game, a multiplayer game, but then I don't play multiplayer games. I'm a weird old curmudgeon. So
you know what this is? Is
this for the concerts?
Yes. Maybe this is a very social thing for concerts or people doing the hang party royale, whatever. But I think this is also probably for streamers, right? Where you're playing in a squad with friends and not everyone is streaming their own thing, or not everyone who's watching can watch 4 streams at once. And so put all the heads on a little bar on the side and pipe all their audio in, and then one person just sends it out. I bet it's half that as well, as a tool for streamers.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. Man, too many stories this week. This is an interesting story. Apple has cut the percentage of the commission they're taking from people that make less than $1 million. So if you make less than $1 million a year, you can apply to this program where Apple, the App Store, will cut their commission from 30% to 15%. And it seems like it's like weirdly super flexible. If you go above 1 million, it kicks it back to 30%. If you drop back below 1 million, you can reapply to kick it down to 15%.
Which is very strange. Like, one of the weird wrinkles of this is that this is not like how income tax works, where you are taxed at a certain rate, and then when you make $1 over that, then everything you make over that is taxed to a new rate.
Right.
Like, this is a program that you apply to, and if you make over $1 million, then you get kicked out of the program for the next year. And so you actually do end up in a weird position where, if you're on the edge there of making that revenue, you actually are incentivized to pull the app or to make it free for a certain amount of time, so that you don't lose that commission. There's actually a gap there where it's actually is bad to make more money. That's very stupid. Apple's a very smart company. I don't know why they would do this like this, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. We also have oh my god. So many of these. EA is getting another loot box lawsuit. This one coming from people in the United States. This one is from the District Court of Northern California. This one's really strange because it's alleging basically that the EA had a patent for this difficulty adjusting mechanism that they could have in the game, and that the plaintiffs are basically saying the EA is making the game harder for anybody that doesn't buy the player packs, in order to basically slowly force people to buy the player packs. While I was reading this story, maybe you understood this better than I did, Bryce. I was like, this seems like a really shitty, stupid thing. It doesn't necessarily seem like it's against the law. like I couldn't think of like what are you suing for. Like you could make a game that was just shitty and hard and badly put together, or like that was made to punish people who played it, but that's not necessarily illegal. It's immoral and stupid, but it's not illegal.
I bet you could look at some amount of fraud argument. You know, the idea where they are treating this game. I don't know, that they're treating this game where they're rigging a game. That's basically what the plaintiffs are saying, that they are rigging this game through the difficulty adjustment technology to entice the player, to psychologically condition the player to spend more money on booster packs and whatever. Assuming this is true, and we don't actually know that this is actually implemented in any way,
right?
I would bet there's some amount of fraud that you could look at, or some amount of like, hey, okay, if there actually are odds and you are controlling those odds, we need to look at FIFA as gambling.
Yeah.
Do we need to really keep an eye on what your control is as the house, basically? Even if it's on a disc, even if it's not online, like if you're, what is the relationship here? Because it's kind of nebulous. We don't really know. There's not a lot of things specifically like that. And that's going to be a lot of attention EA doesn't want right now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as you were talking, I was actually thinking about how often games do the opposite, right? How
make themselves easier.
Yeah, they make themselves easier, like behind the scenes in ways that, what's the thing? Typically the last 20% of your health bar in video games is actually like 3 times that. They make it so that there's certain damages that get adjusted depending on like how many bullets are left in your clip. There are all these like really subtle things that video game developers do to make you always feel like you're right on the edge of failing, but then allowing you to succeed. In a lot of ways, it goes back to what we were talking about with Demon's Souls, where I feel like the Souls games feel hard because they don't have any of that tech in there. But like most even action games, they're not fair. They actually give you a lot of chances and kind of slide the scale in your favor. Yeah. Yeah.
There's really good information out there about like all of the ways XCOM is like boosting the stats that it shows, the odds that it shows you. And the fact that these are happening in online games, in multiplayer games between characters, and that somehow EA is able to make, is able to affect these multiplayer games in this way, then I don't know if that's legal, but I would want to know what the fuck they are doing, and if they have the ability to do that, and why they are doing that, for what purpose, just to fucking understand. Because it's bizarre. They don't really need to be rigging this, except if they were trying to exploit people.
True. Very true. Let's see. We talked about how that 13 game is really terrible. The team behind it is very sorry, and they would like to try to make the game better through a series of patches. I actually went to record a video with this game yesterday, running the PS4 version on the PS5. And the screen tearing was so bad that I turned it off after 5 minutes and we played Chicken Police instead because it's a bad game. It's a bad game. Well, I don't even know if the original was any good or not, but the remake is terrible.
I feel like I did not like the original, but I did not play much of it. This Kotaku article is very good in that it brings up the point that no one was really asking for this game, and there was no reason for you to rush this, and then also just like the fundamental things, like this game is not cell shaded in the way that the original game is cell shaded.
Yep.
Are you going to change all of that? Like, because the design of this is a big thing that I've heard from players.
Like, I don't even know if this is the case. I'm kind of just making an assumption here. But when the game started, there was a character that walked into a room where a movie was being played and sat down in a chair and watched the movie. I'm pretty sure that the movie was the original, like, opening screen that came up, like the movie that played when you started the game, but they didn't bother to remake that. They just had the old super compressed like PlayStation 2 intro cinematic playing on a projector that a character was watching. And I was like, maybe I'm wrong, but it was just like, because all the characters look different in that, they looked like the old game did. And then the character that was watching it looked like very sharp and crisp and didn't have any of the cell shading on it. And I was like, did you guys literally just play the video from the old game and you didn't bother to like do any kind of upsampling or any of that? You just played the bad version in a movie theater.
Yeah, this is a very strange project to begin with.
Yep. Let's see. If you have one of those fancy new Nvidia cards with the DLSS, there's a bunch of games that are getting some really significant performance boosts. Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, War Thunder, Enlisted, and Ready or Not. There's these. Did you look at these graphs that, like, on the 3090, you're going from like 68 frames per second to like 174 frames per second or something like that. 124.
Yeah, I have. Okay, how do you feel about this DLSS? So my understanding, having read, this is NVIDIA's own press release. DLSS basically renders each frame at a lower resolution and then uses like machine learning to fill in the gaps. And that machine learning is faster to create details than it takes to just render the actual correct pixels.
That is
and
correct.
That's where these boosts are coming from. Mm-hmm. I hate that idea on here. I what the fuck? You can't just make like this. I have very. We cannot spend. I can't. If you let me, I will spend a lot of time talking about machine learning and data. But I don't love the idea of machine learning. I think it's fine. Machine learning to create video game image information is fine. It's very cool. They put in the Final Fantasy VII backgrounds and they ram them through the thing and they look really cool up-res. That's cool. It's very dangerous technology just in general because, okay, well, what about surveillance cameras? Are surveillance cameras using machine learning? Is a machine creating fidelity and information? And then suddenly, like, how much variability is that? Is it if you have two computers doing the exact same thing, are they actually outputting the same thing? How accurate is what they're putting out? I'm going to sound like an old man. I'm very sorry about this, but what the fucking hell are we doing with this? This is bizarre to me.
It's funny. There's some interesting questions. I mean, I was looking at some videos of like some games. Like there was a video that was online of Death Stranding running at like 320 by 400 or something, being up-resed at just up to 720 by this DLSS, and like you could definitely tell something was wrong with it, right? Like, but it got a lot of the details really, really right. I think it's really interesting because to me, the idea of the DLSS enhancement is what could allow us to push past some of. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning of this podcast. Some of the horse shit involved with the whole, like, well, we have to make, 400 developers work for 5 years for 60 hours a week making detail on, like, all the house plants in this jungle in order to get the fidelity that gamers want, as opposed to some of the stuff. Like, there was a video on their website where they kind of showed a back and forth with that War Thunder game. And like they would stop and zoom in on specific details and show like this is what the DLSS version looks like. This is what the native 4K version looks like. Because basically the native 4K is running 4K by default. The DLSS is running like 1440p and then up-resing it to 4K and filling in the detail. And like what these cards are able to do is very impressive. Like it doesn't look weird once you're that
very
high.
Close.
Yeah. Like I don't know that I could tell the difference with my naked eye if you were to show me a video and say, is this using DLSS or is this not using DLSS? I hadn't thought about the idea of using this to up-res to make things have more fidelity in the actual world. But you know what? Like, hey, that opening cutscene from 13 that you want to take the original crappy, like compressed video from the PS2 that was made for a 640 by 480 television and put it in 4K, and you're going to run it through DLSS 8 times, and it's going to make all the detail that needed to be in there in the first place. that has some weird implications. There's some weird implications about how much work is being done by this.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it as much in video games because all I really need out of video games is the experience of playing as opposed to like whether the rock texture on the wall of Demon's Souls is the original rock texture or some AI's interpretation of the rock texture. That doesn't matter quite as much in my mind, but
yeah,
I could definitely see how you come into a weird place where you're like, am I playing the same game as somebody else, or am I playing an AI's dream of Dark Souls remastered?
Right. I mean, it's going to be a lot of really good questions. I mean, it looks good. It looks sharper than some of the 4K stuff in some of these videos that they put out. It's just conceptually like, are you really seeing what the game is? I don't know. I mean, it's very bizarre. It's bizarre. I mean, it's great. More frames. But wow. It's like weird. You're just
this technology has like vectored you off into this whole philosophical idea of just like, but what does it mean when I see something? Is it really what I'm seeing, or is it the thoughts of a machine telling me what the world is?
You're going to be playing Call of Duty, and an artificial intelligence would be drawing half of the pixels on your screen more.
Yep.
Like that's anyone else think that's just really weird? That's really fucking bizarre. That's really bizarre.
As long as it doesn't draw those eyeballs, all those psychedelic rainbow eyeball cats. Like, actually, no, that's not true. If there was a mode that would make the DLSS draw it like that dumb Google AI did things, I would totally play Call of Duty with all the rainbow psychedelic colors and the eyeballs on everything, because that's
going to be the next Amnesia game. Amnesia 3, a machine of pigs.
Actually, there's already Amnesia 4.
Whatever. No one cares.
All right, we're zipping through. We're going fast now. Hyrule Warriors got a launch trailer. I'm super excited. Age of Calamity looks great. You gonna play Age of Calamity, Bryce?
Probably not. Okay. Not a big Muso fan.
Mortal Kombat 11 has a new thing called Ultimate that is basically all the previous stuff with the 3 new characters, Melina, Rambo, and Rain. I played them. Melina's not as good as I want her to be. Rambo is a really strange addition to Mortal Kombat because it looks so much like Sylvester Stallone from that movie where he's got
John Rambo. Oh, yeah,
PTSD.
That's RoboCop. What the fuck?
Oh, have you not been keeping up with Mortal Kombat?
No, I missed the thing. Added the Joker. Is that Arnold? Oh my goodness.
Yep.
There's a lot of boys in this game. Jeff.
Yep. Terminator, Spawn, Joker, RoboCop, and John Rambo are all now in this game because it's ridiculous. That's why. Let's see. We got a trailer for the Neo collection, which is going to basically be Neo 1 and Neo 2 with all of the DLC on the PlayStation 5 with some enhancements, some up-reses. I could not give less of a shit about Neo 1, but I really enjoyed Neo 2. I might put Neo 2 on a Game of the Year list. I don't know.
Oh, okay. But. So does this mean there will be no Neo 3? I mean, they're calling this the entire collection.
I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
It's a very strange thing to compile 2 games. Now, I guess they are remastering these games to some degree for PS5, so maybe that's it. But sometimes when you call something a complete collection, it usually means some other things.
I don't know. If they're going to make another one, it's probably going to be a little while. Or I don't know. I don't even know how long it takes to do these. But I do know that I like Neo 2. We also got a trailer for Immortals Phoenix Rising Adventure Time crossover. This is a very strange commercial where Finn and Jake try to fight a Cerberus, and then an Adventure Time version of Phoenix from Phoenix Rising comes in and saves the day. and has a quip and then leaves. I was very confused by this, but then I don't watch Adventure Time, so question mark?
And this is confusing to me because I don't know shit about Immortals Phoenix Rising. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I actually played Immortals Phoenix Rising. There is a Stadia exclusive demo for it. And this is it's basically Ubisoft's Breath of the Wild game. But it's actually the most excited I've been about a Ubisoft game in a while because like the framing device is Zeus is talking with Prometheus, is Prometheus the guy that was like chained to the rock and then the vulture ate his liver? That's Prometheus, right? Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
So they're doing like a weird narrative voiceover. They had a kind of Call of Juarez gunslinger thing where it's like, then she ran across a minotaur. It wasn't a minotaur. It was a gorgon. And it's like, no, it wasn't. It was just a bunch of chickens. And like in the game, the model changes. So it's got this kind of quippy narration. And it was really fun what I played. So... And that's coming out in December, like in 2 weeks or something like that. So,
oh man, it could have been the game of the year.
Yeah. Damn you, Keeley. And then, boy, I'm not going to talk about this Radeon R6000 partner showcase where some dude talks about Far Cry for 3 minutes and then it's over. Instead, I'm going to tell you that it appears that Far Cry 6 is going to be coming out sometime between April of 2021 and March. No, that's the fiscal year when it starts. It'll probably be coming out, what was this, around May 26th.
May 26th is what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, kind of weird in that I feel like we haven't even seen anything from this game yet. I feel like we would have seen something at this point outside of that one trailer.
We see that story cinematic trailer. I wonder because they've had plenty of time to introduce us to this. I mean, Far Cry 5, you look at how much time and press they spent making Far Cry 5, in front of everyone's consciousness that why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they doing that with this?
Maybe they just got to get closer. They don't want to overshadow Valhalla, Phoenix Rising, and other stuff by doing it right now, but I don't know. I also had a pretty cute trailer it's got this Minecraft Star Wars set with these really weird versions of the characters with their blocky Minecraft faces added onto the weird Minecraft heads. It's a little bizarre, but apparently this is good. This also has like the Mandalorian. I think it's funny though that like, nothing in Minecraft, there's not like vehicles, I guess, outside of like sheep. So it's not like the X-Wings actually fly or anything, or do they?
Do they not?
I don't think they do.
Looking at this, it looks like there's a little fella even like in one of these. So maybe if they're, I don't know. I would bet.
I'm wondering if they
these
do
are like a whole map. I think that they probably do in these maps.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to check it out. They're out now. We also got there's going to be some new Lego Mario sets coming in January. Including like a creative thing that lets you kind of customize your own thing. Kate Bishop for the Avengers, if anybody still cares, is apparently going to be out on December 8th. Boy, that game needs to get its act together before nobody is playing it. And let's see, outside of that, I didn't actually even read any of these stories, so it's good. We're really just kind of crashing into the side of the mountain all the way at the end of this podcast. Spider-Man turns into a trash can, and I did read this story about this person who created this like virtual set up a PS5 simulator game that you can play, where it's like if you can't get your hands on a PS5, you could play this like super quick slap together game where you get to basically set up a PS5 in front of your TV and turn it on in a video game, in a Steam game. So
that's cute. That's a cute little thing.
Yep, I agree. And that's it. Oh my God, it's gone for so long.
You did it, Jeff. I'm cursed. I'm cursed on this show.
No, I just need to make sure that whenever you and I record, we only have like 5 news stories so we can talk about each
bare
one.
essentials.
Then we just need a spin-off podcast where it's just like, what do you want to talk about this week, Bryce? We're not doing news stories. We're just going to be like, but what does it mean when the machine makes the pixels the day
it's guessing? It's crayon drawing your frames for you, Jeff. Isn't that fucking weird?
I think it's cool. I want more of that. I want machines to do more. I, for one, welcome our machine overlords. But until such time as they show up, Bryce, where can people find you on the internet?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at Brycas, Brycas, and I do a lot of streaming on our Twitch channel. We do podcasts, and I do some video game stuff around the weekends. That's at twitch.tv/Night Attack, NIGHTATTACK. I'm going to get back into Hitman soon on the PlayStation 5. It's a little bit faster. It looks a little nicer.
Load times. Saving and load times. Yeah.
They're not crazy better, but they're noticeably better. And then, we do marbles and stuff, a bunch of other different types of stuff. I'm trying to get back into shape, Jeff, so I can do some DDR streams. I've not done a DDR stream before, so I might do some of that. But yeah, check it out, Brycas and Night Attack. Thank you.
Cool. And you know where you are. You already listened to Rage Select, so you know about Rage Select. That's it. That's all we got. I don't even have a pithy outro. It's done. It's over.
Bye.
I play Demon Souls. Get out of here.